Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna. So, we'll continue reading in the Krishna book, Time for Krishna book. And it's chapter 22, volume 2, chapter 22, the Deliverance of Salva. So up to this point, Pradyumna has been fighting Salva and his magic airplane and the infantry troops sent by Salva to attack Dwarka. And Pradyumna was rescued by his charioteer from an awkward situation. He was struck in such a way that he became unconscious on the battlefield, and his charioteer dragged him to safety. At first, Pradyumna was upset about this because it looked like an act of cowardice that, oh, you left the battlefield. But actually he was unconscious and his charioteer dragged him to safety, so he didn't really leave the battlefield. His charioteer rescued him. So this is the next chapter called The Deliverance of Salva. After talking with his charioteer, the son of Daruka, Pradyumna could understand the real circumstances, and therefore he refreshed himself by washing his mouth and hands. Arming himself properly with bows and arrows, he asked his charioteer to take him near the place where Salva's commander-in-chief was standing. During the short absence of Pradyumna from the battlefield, Juman, Salva's commander-in-chief, had been taking over the positions of the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. By appearing in the battlefield, Pradyumna immediately stopped him and struck him with 8 arrows. With 4 arrows he killed his 4 horses. With 1 arrow, his chariot driver, and with another arrow he cut his bow in 2. With another arrow he cut his flag into pieces, and with another he severed his head from his body. On the other fronts, heroes like Gada, Satyaki, and Samba were engaged in killing the soldiers of Salva. The soldiers who were staying with Salva in the airplane were also killed in the fighting. They fell into the ocean. Each party began to strike the opposite party very severely. The battle was fierce and dangerous and continued for 27 days without stop. While the fight was going on in the city of Dwarka, Krishna was staying at Indraprastha along with the Pandavas and King Yudhisthira. This fighting with Salva took place after the Rajasuya Yagna had been performed by King Yudhisthira and after the killing of Shishupal. When Lord Krishna understood that there was great danger in the city of Dwarka, he took permission from the elderly members of the Pandava family, especially from his aunt Kunti Devi, and started immediately for Dwarka. Lord Krishna began to think that while he was arriving in Hastinapur with Balaram, after the killing of Shishupal, Shishupal's men must have attacked Dwarka. On reaching Dwarka, Lord Krishna saw that the whole city was greatly endangered. He placed Balaramaji in a strategic position for the protection of the city, and he himself asked his charioteer Daruka to prepare to start. He said, "Daruka, please immediately take me to where Salva is staying. You may know that this Salva is very powerful, mysterious man. Don't fear him in the least." As soon as he got his orders from Lord Krishna, Daruka had him seated on the chariot and drove very quickly towards Salva. The chariot of Lord Krishna was marked with the flag bearing the insignia of Garuda, and as soon as the soldiers and warriors of the Yadu dynasty saw the flag, they could understand that Lord Krishna was on the battlefield. By this time, almost all the soldiers of Salva had been killed, but when Salva saw that Krishna had come to the battlefield, he released a great powerful weapon, which flew through the sky with a roaring sound like a great meteor. It was so bright that the whole sky lit up by its presence. But as soon as Lord Krishna appeared, he tore the great weapon into hundreds and thousands of pieces by releasing his own arrow. Lord Krishna struck Salva with 16 arrows, and with showers of arrows he overpowered the airplane, just as the sun in a clear sky overpowers the whole sky but an unlimited number of molecules of sunshine. Salva struck a severe blow to Krishna's left side, where the Lord was carrying his bow, Saranga, and as a result, the Saranga bow fell from the Lord's hand. This dropping of the bow was indeed wonderful. Great personalities and demigods who were observing the fighting between Salva and Krishna became most perturbed by this, and they began to exclaim, "Alas, alas!" Salva thought he'd become victorious, and with a roaring sound began to address Lord Krishna as follows: "You rascal Krishna, you kidnapped Rukmini forcibly, even in our presence. You baffled my friend Shishupal and married Rukmini yourself. And in the great assembly at King Yudhishthir's Rajasuya Yagna, while my friend Shishupal was a little absent-minded, you took an opportunity to kill him. Everyone thinks that you're a great fighter and that no one can conquer you, but now you'll have to prove your strength. I think that if you stand before me any longer with my sharpened arrows, I shall send you to a place wherefrom you will never return." To this Lord Krishna replied, "Foolish Salva, you are talking nonsensically. You do not know that the moment of death is already upon your head. Those who are actually heroes do not talk much. They prove their prowess by practical exhibition of chivalrous activities." After saying this, Lord Krishna, in great anger, struck Salva on the collarbone with his club. So severely he began to bleed internally and tremble, as if he were going to collapse from severe cold. Before Krishna was able to strike him again, however, Salva became invisible by his mystic power. Within a few moments, a mysterious, unknown man came before Lord Krishna. Crying loudly, he bowed down at the Lord's lotus feet and said to him, "Since you are the most beloved son of your father Vasudeva, your mother Devaki has sent me to inform you of the unfortunate news. Your father's been arrested by Salva and taken him away by force. He took him just as a butcher mercifully takes away an animal." When Lord Krishna heard this unfortunate news from the unknown man, he at first became most perturbed, just like an ordinary human being. His face showed signs of grief, and he began to cry in a piteous tone. "How could that happen? My brother Lord Balarama is there. It's impossible for anyone to conquer Balaramaji. He's in charge of Dwarka city, and I know he's always alert. How could Salva possibly enter the city and arrest my father in that way? Whatever he may be, Salva's power is limited, so how could it be possible that he has conquered the strength of Balaramaji, taken away my father, arresting him as described by this man? Alas, destiny is, after all, very powerful." While Krishna was thinking like this, Salva brought before him in custody a man exactly resembling Vasudeva's father. These were all creations of the mystic power of Salva. Salva began to address Krishna. "You rascal, Krishna, look, this is your father who has begotten you, and by whose mercy you're still living. Now just see how I kill your father. If you have any strength, try to save him." The mystic juggler Salva, speaking in this way before Lord Krishna, immediately cut off the head of the false Vasudeva. Without hesitation, he took away the dead body and got into his airplane. Lord Krishna is the self-sufficient, Supreme Personality of Godhead, yet because he was playing the role of a human being, he became very depressed for a moment, as if he had actually lost his father. But at the next moment, he could understand that the arrest and the killing of his father were demonstrations of mystic powers which Salva had learned from the demon Maya. Coming to his right consciousness, he could see that there was no messenger, no head of his father, but that only Salva had left in his airplane, which was flying in the sky. He then began to think of slaying Salva. Krishna's reaction is a controversial point among great authorities and saintly persons. How could Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of all power and knowledge, be bewildered in such a way? Lamentation, aggrievement, bewilderment, characteristics of persons who are conditioned souls. How can such things affect the person of the Supreme, who's full of knowledge, power, and all opulence? Well, actually, it's not at all possible that Lord Krishna was misled by the mystic juggler of Salva. He was displaying his pastime in playing the role of a human being. Great saintly persons and sages who are engaged in devotional service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and who have thus achieved the greatest perfection of self-realization, have transcended the bewilderments of the bodily concept of life. Lord Krishna is the ultimate goal of life for such saintly persons. How then could Krishna have been bewildered by the mystic juggler of Salva? The conclusion is Lord Krishna's bewilderment was another opulence of his Supreme Personality. When Salva thought that Krishna had been bewildered by his mystic representations, he became encouraged and began to attack the Lord with greater strength and energy by showering volumes of arrows upon him. But the enthusiasm of Salva can be compared to the speedy march of flies into a fire. Lord Krishna, by hurling his arrows with unfathomable strength, injured Salva, whose armor, bow, and jeweled helmet all shattered into pieces. With a crashing blow from Krishna's club, Salva's wonderful airplane burst into pieces and fell into the sea. Salva was very careful, and instead of crashing with the airplane, he managed to jump onto the land. He again rushed towards Lord Krishna. When Salva ran swiftly to attack Krishna with his club, Lord Krishna cut off his head, which fell to the ground with the club. Finally, deciding to kill him, the Lord took... Oh, I'm sorry. That didn't make any sense. It didn't cut off his head. He cut off his hand. Excuse me. Cutting off the head comes next. First he cut off his hand, which was holding the club, and fell to the ground with the club. Krishna, deciding to kill him, the Lord took up his wonderful disc, which was shining like the brilliant sun at the time of the dissolution of the material creation. When Lord Sri Krishna stood up with his disc to kill Salva, he appeared just like the red sun rising over a mountain. Lord Krishna then cut off his head, and the head with its earrings and helmet fell on the ground. Salva was thus killed in the same way as Vritrashura was killed by Indra, king of heaven. When Salva was killed, all his soldiers and followers began to cry, "Alas, alas!" While Salva's men were thus crying, the demigods from the heavenly planets showered flowers on Krishna and announced the victory by beating on drums and blowing bugles. At this very moment, other friends of Shishupal, such as Dantavakra, appeared on the scene to fight with Krishna in order to avenge the death of Shishupal. When Dantavakra appeared before Lord Krishna, he was extremely angry. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 22nd chapter, Volume 2, 22nd chapter of Krishna, the Deliverance of Salva.